Now just 30 seconds to Space Shuttle Discovery's deorbit burn. Once again, this will be 2 minutes and 27 seconds long. Both orbital maneuvering systems will fire 6,000 pounds of thrust each. That will be enough to slow down Discovery by 188 miles per hour. And at that point, Discovery will be on its way toward the Kennedy Space Center with a landing on runway 15. The team reports that the burn has been enabled. Standing by. Mission Control confirms that both orbital maneuvering system engines are now firing. Two minutes to go. Everything looking good. Discovery still heading down toward the southeast. It'll be approaching the western edge of Australia here shortly. Once this burn is completed, it will take 1 hour for Discovery to reach that part of the world to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It'll go from Mach 25 down to 0 in that amount of time. "60 seconds to go. "30 seconds. Discovery continuing to slow down. This burn is changing Discovery's speed by 276 feet per second. That's 188 miles per hour. Just 15 seconds left in this burn. The burn's been completed.
We saw a good deorbit burn. We'll meet you in the post-burn tab of the entry checklist.
Copy that.
Once again, Space Shuttle Discovery's deorbit burn conducted at 9:52 a.m. Central Time. It lasted for 2 minutes 27 seconds. It slowed down Discovery by 188 miles per hour. The shuttle right now over the Indian Ocean, heading down toward the southeast, now on its way toward the Kennedy Space Center. Now that Discovery's on its way home, we're going to check in with the Kennedy Space Center. We're going to go now to George Diller there to give us an update on convoy operations as the Kennedy Space Center gets ready to welcome home Discovery for the final time.
Landing will be on runway 15 at the shuttle landing facility, a northwest to southeast approach. Once Discovery's rollout is complete, the point on the runway where the nose wheel stops will be marked, and Later, a permanent marker will be placed at the edge of the runway, designating the final stopping point of Discovery's last landing. Most of the final landing preparations at the shuttle landing facility runway were completed yesterday when all of the convoy vehicles and their support systems were turned on and checked out. There was a thorough sweep of the runway to check for possible debris, and that sweep was repeated again this morning. The runway operations are being controlled by Landing and Recovery Director Greg Gaddis in Firing Room 4 of the Launch Control Center, and by the Convoy Commander Dean Schaff at the Shuttle Landing Facility runway. The Landing and Recovery Director's consoles were staffed for landing starting at 8 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. The landing team, who will meet Discovery on the runway in the vehicle convoy after touchdown, had their last and final briefing this morning at 10:15 a.m. The convoy then began moving out to the shuttle landing facility about a half an hour later at 10:45. There are a total of almost 50 vehicles that make up the convoy. Not all of those vehicles are on the runway at any one time, but enter at various times during the post-landing activities. Also earlier this morning, the microwave scanning beam landing system, the precision instrument approach landing system for Discovery's final approach, as well as the visual landing systems, were turned on and received a final checkout. Now that the deorbit burn has been completed, the convoy vehicles will be pre-positioned at their end of the runway, ready to move in toward Discovery once it is safe to do so. The Milo tracking station at Kennedy will acquire Discovery at about 13 minutes before landing, or at about 11:45 Eastern Time this morning. Discovery will be at a distance of approximately 500 miles from touchdown, and Milo will begin supplying controllers in Houston with voice, data, and telemetry communications. Also at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, radar contact with Discovery will also be made at that time. The orbiter will make its approach to the Kennedy Space Center using the ground-based TACAN system, the radio homing beacon at the shuttle landing facility. The orbiter will acquire the signal about 11 minutes before touchdown. Also being used aboard Discovery for landing is a global positioning system. The long-range optical trackers at Kennedy Space Center and at Patrick Air Force Base will acquire the orbiter visually about 8.5 minutes prior to touchdown. As Discovery approaches KSC and intercepts the heading alignment circle, the orbiter will begin following the curved approach of the microwave scanning beam landing system at the shuttle landing facility. This will provide the orbiter with range, elevation, and azimuth information to the orbiter's navigation system. The twin sonic booms will be heard at KSC approximately 3 minutes and 20 seconds before landing. And shortly after that, the pilot's point of view camera will provide video of the runway from the cockpit. Discovery's weight as it touches down on runway 15 will be 204,736 pounds, which is 63,884 pounds lighter than when it launched, reflecting what was left at the space station. After the orbiter's landing rollout is complete, there will then be the usual safety inspections, the so-called sniff checks to look for any toxic propellants which may have leaked or be venting. The astronauts, meanwhile, will configure switches in the cockpit for post-landing activities and participate with the KSC ground operations team to save the vehicle. The landing team is customarily given a briefing on any problems that may need their special attention once the orbiter is on the runway and has fully rolled to a stop. When the vehicle is deemed completely free of any toxic gases, the purge and coolant umbilical access vehicle moves into position at the rear of the orbiter. Following purge and cooling system connections, the crew transport vehicle will be moved into position adjacent to the orbiter access hatch on Discovery's port side. This usually occurs about a half an hour after landing. Some of the orbiter surfaces will be hot after landing from the re-entry, so the hands-on inspections will not begin until the orbiter has completely cooled, which is about 45 minutes after landing. This includes cursory inspection of the landing gear, the orbiter's wheels and tires, and will be a quick look status of the orbiter's thermal protection system tiles. Also, a physician will board Discovery as soon after landing as the crew access hatch can be safely opened. He will conduct a brief preliminary examination of the astronauts before the crew leaves the orbiter. The astronauts can then make their preparations to disembark and enter the crew transport vehicle. That also usually occurs about 45 minutes after landing. Then after a more thorough physical evaluation aboard the crew transport vehicle, which takes about another half hour or so, the astronauts will have the customary opportunity for a walk-around of the orbiter out on the runway. They will then leave for the 5-mile trip back to the astronaut quarters. Discovery's tow to the hangar will begin approximately 4 hours after landing, where it will be going to Orbiter Processing Facilities Bay 2. Then Discovery will be fully offloaded, and it will be deserviced for the final time. Once back at the astronaut quarters, all the crew will undergo thorough physical examinations, then have lunch and see their immediate family members. They're planning to go home to Houston on Thursday afternoon. After Discovery's landing, after 202 orbits, it will have traveled 5,304,140 miles. And now, after completing a total of 39 missions, it will have spent 365 days in space, a full 1 year, and traveled 148,221,675 miles, cementing its place in shuttle history. At 50 more minutes, 30 seconds before the landing of Space Shuttle Discovery, this is Kennedy Space Center Shuttle Ground Operations.
Okay, thank you, George, for that quick update from the Kennedy Space Center. Back now live inside the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room. Discovery beginning to head down toward the atmosphere. We are now 22.5 minutes away from the point known as entry interface. This is where Discovery will encounter the first traces of the atmosphere at an altitude of 400,000 feet, or 75 miles. At that point, Discovery will still be traveling at a speed of more than 17,000 miles an hour, a little less than Mach 25. At that point, the shuttle will still be more than 5,000 miles from the landing site there at the Kennedy Space Center. As you can see from this graphic, Discovery has taken on its re-entry position with the nose down. Once it starts encountering the atmosphere, Discovery will lift its nose up,